You wake up and the world is already pulling at you. Demands, worries, expectations. It's relentless. But what if I told you there's a way to find calm amidst the chaos? A way to face life's harshest moments without breaking, to stand firm like a rock in the storm. Imagine a man, an emperor no less, with the weight of an entire empire on his shoulders. Betrayal, war, loss, he faced it all. And yet he found peace, not by controlling the world, but by mastering himself. That man was Marcus Aurelius, and his reflections are not just ancient words, they are a lifeline for anyone struggling to navigate the noise of life. This isn't just philosophy, this is survival, this is strength. And today we'll uncover the timeless wisdom that can transform the way you live, love, and lead. Let's dive in. Book 1. Lessons from those who shaped Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius's reflections in this first section of Meditations serve as more than a simple acknowledgement of those who shaped him. They are a roadmap for how we too can cultivate gratitude and integrate the lessons we've learned from others into our lives. Let's delve deeper into the profound ways Marcus embraced these teachings and how they resonate with timeless human truths. Gratitude was not a mere ritual for Marcus. It was a conscious act of grounding himself in the virtues he admired and sought to embody. By listing out the qualities he learned from each person in his life, Marcus wasn't just reflecting on the past. He was reinforcing his commitment to live by those values every day. This practice is strikingly modern. Consider how mindfulness and gratitude journaling are often recommended today as tools for emotional balance and resilience. Marcus was doing this long before such practices had a name. His reflections are a reminder that gratitude is not about sentimental musings. It's a practical exercise in shaping one's character. Take, for instance, his gratitude toward his grandfather Verus for teaching him self-control and good character. This wasn't just about personal restraint. It was about cultivating an inner strength that allowed Marcus to remain calm and composed, even in the face of life's storms. Imagine the pressures of ruling an empire where every decision could impact millions. Self-control wasn't just a virtue for Marcus, it was a survival skill. For us, while our challenges may not involve leading a nation, self-control remains just as vital. Think about the moments when you've been tested, whether in a heated argument, under workplace pressure, or during personal struggles. How might your response change if you anchored yourself in the same deliberate calm Marcus admired in his grandfather? His reflections on his father are equally compelling. Though his father passed away early in Marcus's life, the lessons he left behind endured. Modesty and manliness, as Marcus described them, were not traits tied to wealth, power, or status. Instead, they were virtues of quiet strength and humility. Marcus's father showed him that true greatness lies not in flaunting what you have, but in knowing when to step back and listen. It's a lesson we could all use today, in a world often dominated by self-promotion and the constant urge to prove oneself. Imagine the freedom in letting go of that need to constantly validate your worth. How might that shift your interactions, your relationships, and your sense of self? The teachings of his mother are deeply touching. Marcus credits her with instilling in him a spirit of generosity, a commitment to simplicity, and a dedication to kindness. These weren't abstract ideals. They were values she lived out daily, showing Marcus what it meant to put others before oneself without expecting anything in return. Think of the people in your life who have modeled unconditional love. Perhaps it was a parent, a teacher, or even a friend. What did they teach you about being generous, not just with material things, but with your time, attention, and care. Marcus's reflections on his mother challenge us to carry forward these acts of selflessness, not as obligations, but as opportunities to make the world a little brighter for someone else. When Marcus talks about his maternal grandfather and the value of decisiveness, he's addressing something many of us struggle with, the fear of making the wrong choice. His grandfather taught him that clarity and action are more important than perfection. Marcus learned that postponing decisions out of fear often leads to more harm than acting with conviction. Think about a time when indecision held you back. What opportunities were lost because you waited for the perfect moment? Marcus's lesson here is simple but profound. Act with integrity and let the results unfold as they may. Perfection is an illusion, but action is real. As Marcus grew older, the lessons he absorbed became more philosophical, shaped by the mentors he chose. From Sextus, he learned the art of adapting gracefully to life's unpredictability. Sextus's calm demeanor and ability to navigate challenges without complaint became a model for Marcus's own approach to leadership. Picture a time when you were faced with unexpected setbacks. Did you meet them with frustration, or did you find a way to adapt and move forward? Sextus's example reminds us that every obstacle is an opportunity to practice resilience and patience. From Apollonius, Marcus learned to endure pain and focus on reason during times of distress. Apollonius showed him that while life's hardships are inevitable, they are also temporary. This idea of impermanence is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, and it's one that can bring immense comfort. The next time you're overwhelmed, consider this. The difficulty you're facing is not forever. What matters is not the hardship itself, but how you choose to respond. Will you let it define you, or will you rise above it? One of Marcus's most transformative influences was Rusticus, the mentor who introduced him to Stoicism. Rusticus taught Marcus to avoid getting caught up in empty rhetoric and instead focus on practical wisdom. Philosophy for Rusticus wasn't about intellectual debates, it was about living a virtuous life. This lesson resonated deeply with Marcus and became a guiding principle in his meditations. Think about how often we get distracted by surface-level concerns, status, appearance, or the need to win arguments. What would it look like to strip away those distractions and focus on living with integrity day by day? Finally, Marcus gives credit to the gods and fate for the circumstances of his life. He expresses gratitude for being placed in a just society, surrounded by wise teachers, and spared from harmful influences. This perspective is profoundly humbling. Marcus didn't see himself as the architect of his success. He saw himself as part of a larger, interconnected system. This awareness allowed him to approach life with gratitude and a sense of duty rather than entitlement. How might your perspective shift if you viewed your life through the same lens, not as a solitary effort, but as a collaboration with the people, events, and circumstances that have shaped you? As we reflect on this first book of Meditations, we're reminded that gratitude isn't just about saying thank you, it's about living in a way that honors the lessons we've received. Marcus Aurelius shows us that the people who influence us, for better or worse, are part of the fabric of who we are. The question is, how will you weave those lessons into the story of your own life? Book 2. Reflection on Nature and the Present Moment. As we move into the second book of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius turns his focus inward, reflecting on the fleeting nature of life and the importance of grounding oneself in the present moment. These reflections are both deeply philosophical and intensely practical, offering a timeless framework for navigating the challenges of daily existence. Marcus begins with a powerful exercise, a morning meditation to prepare himself for the day ahead. Each morning, Marcus would remind himself, "Today you will meet people who are selfish, deceitful, and rude. But remember, this is their nature." What an extraordinary way to frame the day. Instead of being blindsided by difficult people, Marcus prepared himself with an understanding that human imperfection is inevitable. This wasn't an excuse for others' bad behavior, but a reminder to approach them with patience and compassion. Can you imagine how this mindset could transform your own day? The next time someone cuts you off in traffic or responds rudely to an email, instead of reacting with frustration, try to remember this is their nature, not yours. Marcus doesn't stop there. He reminds himself that while others may act from ignorance, he has the power to choose his response. This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the idea that while we can't control external events, we can always control how we react to them. For Marcus, this meant returning to reason and virtue, no matter how others behaved. Think about the last time someone upset you. How did you respond? Did their behavior pull you into anger or resentment, or were you able to maintain your own sense of peace? Marcus's reflection is a challenge to rise above, to remain anchored in your own values regardless of the storm around you. One of Marcus's most enduring metaphors is that of life as a river. He describes time as a constant flow, with moments slipping past us like water. Just as you cannot step into the same river twice, you cannot hold on to the past or grasp the future. The present is all we truly have. This concept, though simple, is deeply profound. How often do we dwell on past mistakes or anxiously plan for a future that may never come? Marcus urges us to release these distractions and focus entirely on the now. This idea of living in the moment isn't just philosophical, it's intensely practical. Marcus believed that by focusing on the present, we could free ourselves from unnecessary suffering. After all, most of our pain comes not from the events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about them. Imagine being able to let go of regret or worry, to simply be present with what is. What would that feel like for you? How might it change the way you approach your day? Marcus also emphasizes the importance of purity of thought. He believed the mind is a fortress, a space that belongs entirely to you. No one can enter it without your permission. This is a powerful idea. It means that no matter what happens in the world around you, your inner peace is always within your control. Think about how often we let external events, news headlines, other people's opinions, unexpected setbacks invade our minds and disrupt our peace. Marcus reminds us that we have the power to guard our thoughts, to keep our minds clear and focused on what truly matters. One of Marcus's most famous lines is his reminder that happiness is not found outside of us, but within. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul, he writes. This is a radical idea, especially in a culture that often equates happiness with external achievements or possessions. Marcus challenges us to look inward, to cultivate a sense of contentment that isn't dependent on circumstances. Consider how often we chase happiness in the wrong places. We tell ourselves, "I'll be happy when I get that promotion, buy that house, or achieve that goal." But even when we reach those milestones, the satisfaction is fleeting. Marcus teaches us that true happiness comes not from acquiring more, but from wanting less. It's about aligning our desires with what we already have, finding joy in the simplicity of the present moment. Marcus also reflects on the interconnectedness of all things. He believed that each of us is part of a larger whole, like cells in a body, or waves in an ocean. This perspective can be incredibly freeing. It reminds us that our individual struggles, while significant to us, are part of a much greater story. The next time you feel overwhelmed by a problem, try to zoom out. Imagine yourself as a small but meaningful piece of a vast, interconnected universe. How does that change your perspective? Does it make your challenges feel a little less overwhelming? This sense of connection also inspired Marcus to act with integrity. He believed that by living virtuously, he was contributing to the harmony of the greater whole. His actions weren't just for himself. They were for the benefit of the world around him. Imagine what it would look like to live this way, to approach every decision with the question, how does this contribute to the greater good? One of Marcus's most practical reflections in this section is his advice to stop seeking perfection. Life is messy, unpredictable, and full of imperfections, but that's what makes it beautiful. Marcus encourages us to embrace life as it is, rather than wishing it were different. This doesn't mean settling for mediocrity. It means accepting that progress, not perfection, is the goal. Think about something in your life that feels imperfect, a relationship, a project, or even yourself. How might your perspective shift if you stopped striving for perfection and instead focused on small, consistent improvements? Marcus reminds us that growth is a journey, not a destination. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory. In these reflections, Marcus Aurelius offers a profound yet practical guide to navigating life. He challenges us to prepare for adversity, embrace the present moment, and find peace within ourselves. But perhaps most importantly, he reminds us that we always have a choice. No matter what life throws at us, we can choose to respond with reason, compassion, and integrity. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. What cues from Marcus's wisdom resonate most with you? Is it the idea of focusing on the present, guarding your mind, or finding happiness within? Whatever it may be, consider how you might start applying these insights today. Book 3. Understanding the Self and Embracing Right Action. As we delve into the third book of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius shifts his focus to self-awareness and the importance of purposeful action. This section emphasizes the idea that understanding oneself, one's thoughts, motives, and limitations is key to living a virtuous and fulfilling life. Marcus invites us to reflect deeply on our actions and urges us to focus on what truly matters, rather than being distracted by external noise. Marcus begins with a striking piece of advice. Do not waste the time you have left in arguing about what a good person should be. Be one. These words are a call to action. Marcus challenges us to move beyond theoretical debates about morality and virtue, and instead focus on living those values. Think about how much energy we often spend discussing ideas, criticizing others, or trying to prove ourselves right. What would happen if we redirected that energy toward action, toward doing the next right thing? This reflection is a powerful reminder that living virtuously isn't about words, it's about deeds. Marcus also stresses the importance of focusing on the present moment. He reminds us that the past is gone and the future is uncertain. All we truly have is now. This isn't just a philosophical ideal, it's a practical guide for reducing stress and staying grounded. Think about how often your mind drifts to things you can't change or control. Worrying about tomorrow or regretting yesterday robs you of today. Marcus's advice is simple but profound. Do what is in front of you and do it with excellence. Whether it's a small task or a major decision, give it your full attention and effort. One of Marcus's recurring themes in this section is the idea of understanding your role in the larger scheme of things. He writes, "Consider yourself as part of the whole. If you focus on fulfilling your part, the whole will function in harmony." This metaphor of being a part of a greater system, like a cell in a body or a cog in a machine, is both humbling and empowering. It reminds us that our actions, no matter how small, contribute to the larger picture. Imagine a workplace where everyone is focused on their individual success rather than the success of the team. The result is chaos, frustration, and inefficiency. Now imagine a team where each person understands their role and works collaboratively toward a common goal. Marcus's wisdom applies not just to organizations, but to all of life. When we focus on fulfilling our part, whether in our families, communities, or society at large, we contribute to the greater good. How can you start applying this mindset in your own life? Marcus also reflects on the importance of understanding our limitations. He writes, "You are just a small part of the universe, a momentary speck in the vastness of time. Do not carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." These words aren't meant to diminish our significance, but to put our problems into perspective. How often do we let small setbacks or minor inconveniences feel like the end of the world? Marcus reminds us to zoom out, to see our challenges in the context of the larger whole. For example, imagine a stressful day at work or a disagreement with a friend. In the heat of the moment, it might feel overwhelming, but when you step back, you realize that these challenges are temporary, a small ripple in the vast ocean of your life. This shift in perspective can help you approach problems with greater calm and clarity. Another key lesson in this section is the value of work. Marcus believed that purposeful action is one of the best ways to keep the mind clear and focused. He writes, "The mind is like a tool. It remains sharp only when it is put to use." In other words, staying engaged in meaningful work isn't just about productivity. It's about maintaining mental health and well-being. Think about the last time you felt truly focused and absorbed in a task. Maybe it was solving a problem, creating something new, or helping someone in need. That sense of flow, the feeling of being fully present and engaged, is deeply satisfying. Marcus encourages us to seek out those moments, to direct our energy toward work that aligns with our values and brings us closer to our purpose. One of the most practical takeaways from this section is Marcus's advice to simplify. He writes, "If you seek tranquility, do less." This doesn't mean being lazy or avoiding responsibility. It means focusing on what truly matters and letting go of the unnecessary. How much of our stress comes from overcommitting, multitasking, or chasing goals that don't align with our values? Marcus invites us to pare down, to focus on the essential and do it well. Take a moment to think about your own life. Are there commitments or habits that add unnecessary stress? What would it look like to simplify, to prioritize what's truly important? This isn't just about saying no to things. It's about saying yes to the things that matter most. At the heart of this section is Marcus's belief that action, not thought alone, defines us. He writes, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good person should be. Be one." This isn't just a challenge, it's an invitation. Marcus believed that every moment is an opportunity to live according to your values. Whether it's through kindness, courage, or integrity, your actions are what define you, not your intentions, not your words, but what you do. As we reflect on Marcus's wisdom in this section, it's worth asking ourselves, what would it mean to live with this level of intentionality? How would our lives change if we focused on doing the next right thing, moment by moment? Marcus reminds us that greatness isn't found in grand gestures or sweeping changes. It's found in the small, deliberate choices we make every day. Book 4. Embracing Change and the Nature of Life. As we step into the fourth book of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius confronts one of life's most profound truths. Everything is in flux. Change is inevitable. It governs the natural world, the lives we lead, and the relationships we hold dear. For Marcus, understanding and accepting this constant transformation wasn't just a matter of philosophy, it was a key to peace. Marcus begins this section by observing the fleeting nature of life. "Nothing lasts forever," he writes, "and that is as it should be." At first glance, this might seem like a somber thought, but for Marcus, it was liberating. By accepting the impermanence of all things, he freed himself from unnecessary attachment and anxiety. Think about how often we resist change, whether it's the end of a relationship, a shift in circumstances, or even the aging of our bodies. Marcus reminds us that resisting change only deepens our suffering. What would it feel like to embrace change instead, to see it as a natural part of life's flow? To illustrate this point, Marcus uses the metaphor of the seasons. Just as autumn leaves fall and winter gives way to spring, so too do people, experiences, and moments come and go. Each phase has its purpose, its beauty, and its lessons. Imagine if we approached life's transitions with the same acceptance we bring to the changing seasons. Would we still cling so tightly to what was, or would we find gratitude for what is? In one of his most powerful reflections, Marcus writes, "What stands in the way becomes the way." This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the idea that obstacles aren't just challenges to overcome, they are opportunities for growth. When we encounter difficulty, we have a choice. We can see it as an unfair burden, or we can see it as a chance to strengthen our character. Consider a time when you faced a significant challenge. Perhaps it was a professional setback, a health issue, or a personal loss. How did you respond? Did the experience break you, or did it push you to grow in unexpected ways? Marcus believed that every obstacle contains within it the seeds of transformation. The very thing you fear or resist might be the thing that propels you forward. Another recurring theme in this section is the interconnectedness of all things. Marcus reflects on how every part of the universe works together in harmony, even if we don't always see it. He believed that what happens to us is part of a greater whole, a tapestry woven from countless threads. This perspective helped him accept not only change, but also adversity. If everything is connected, then even life's challenges serve a purpose. They are part of a larger design, one that we may not fully understand but can trust nonetheless. This idea can be incredibly grounding. Think about a difficult situation in your life. What if, instead of seeing it as random or unfair, you viewed it as part of a larger story, one that's still unfolding? How might that shift your perspective? Marcus's reflections encourage us to trust the process, even when it feels uncertain or uncomfortable. One of the most striking aspects of this section is Marcus's humility. Despite being an emperor, he continually reminds himself of his smallness in the grand scheme of things. "The universe is vast," he writes, "and my life is but a fleeting moment." This isn't self-deprecation, it's clarity. Marcus understood that while his actions mattered, they were part of something far greater than himself. This perspective is both humbling and empowering. On one hand, It puts our problems into perspective. The frustrations and setbacks that feel so overwhelming in the moment are, in the grand scheme of things, small and temporary. On the other hand, it reminds us that even small actions can contribute to the greater good. By living with integrity, we play our part in the larger whole. Marcus also touches on the importance of staying grounded in the present. He writes, "The present moment is all you ever truly have." This is a theme that runs throughout Meditations, but in this section, Marcus connects it directly to the idea of change. By focusing on the present, we free ourselves from the weight of the past and the uncertainty of the future. Think about how much mental energy we spend dwelling on what has already happened or worrying about what might happen. What would it feel like to let go of those distractions and simply be here, now? Marcus offers a practical exercise to anchor ourselves in the present. He suggests breaking down every task into its simplest components. For example, instead of thinking, "I need to write a report," focus on the immediate next step. I'll write the first sentence. By approaching life one small action at a time, we make even the most daunting tasks manageable. More importantly, we train ourselves to be fully present in whatever we're doing. In this section, Marcus also addresses the fear of loss. He reminds us that nothing truly belongs to us, not our possessions, not our relationships, not even our own lives. Everything we have is borrowed from the universe, and one day it will be returned. While this might sound unsettling, Marcus saw it as a path to freedom. When we release our attachment to what we cannot keep, we make space for gratitude and peace. Imagine how this perspective might change the way you approach your own life. Instead of clinging to what you have, could you savor it more deeply, knowing it's temporary? Instead of fearing loss, could you find joy in the present moment, knowing it's a gift? Finally, Marcus reflects on the role of nature in shaping our lives. He believed that by aligning ourselves with the natural order, we could find harmony and peace. This doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens. It means recognizing that life unfolds according to its own rhythms, and our job is to work with those rhythms, not against them. Take a moment to think about your own relationship with change. Do you resist it, or do you embrace it as part of life's natural flow? Marcus's reflections challenge us to see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity, a chance to grow, to learn, and to become more fully ourselves. Book 5. Commitment to Work and Duty. In the 5th book of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius turns his attention to work, both the physical tasks we perform and the inner work required to live a virtuous life. He explores the nature of duty, discipline, and the importance of rising to meet the responsibilities we are given. For Marcus, work wasn't just about getting things done. It was a path to self-mastery and alignment with nature's order. One of the most memorable reflections in this section comes from Marcus's thoughts on mornings. He writes, "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, 'I have to go to work,' as a human being." This is Marcus's way of reframing the struggle against laziness. He reminds himself that just as a bird is made to fly and a fish to swim, humans are made to work, to contribute, and to fulfill their role in the greater whole. Think about how this applies to your own mornings. How often do you hit the snooze button, dreading the tasks ahead? Marcus challenges us to see work not as a burden, but as an opportunity to fulfill our nature. What if, instead of asking, "Why do I have to do this?" you asked, "How can I approach this with purpose and excellence?" How might that change your attitude toward even the most mundane tasks? Marcus also confronts the temptation to procrastinate. He writes, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." These words aren't meant to be morbid, they're a wake-up call. Marcus reminds us that life is short and tomorrow is never guaranteed. If you've been putting off something important, whether it's a project, a conversation, or a personal goal, Marcus's advice is simple. Don't wait. Act now while you still can. This perspective is both sobering and motivating. It cuts through the excuses we often make. "I'll start tomorrow," or "I'm too busy right now," and urges us to focus on what truly matters. Think about something you've been postponing. What's stopping you from starting today? Marcus's words challenge us to stop delaying and take the first step, however small it might be. Another key idea in this section is the importance of doing even the smallest tasks with care and integrity. Marcus writes, "Even the smallest thing should be done with reference to the greater purpose." This reflects his belief that no task is insignificant if it is approached with the right mindset. Whether you're writing an email, preparing a meal, or helping a friend, every action is an opportunity to practice virtue and contribute to the greater good. Imagine how your perspective might shift if you treated every task, no matter how routine, as a chance to express your best self. Instead of rushing through your day on autopilot, what if you slowed down and gave each moment your full attention? Marcus teaches us that excellence isn't reserved for grand achievements. It's something we bring to every action, every interaction, and every decision. In this section, Marcus also reflects on the value of perseverance. He writes, "Do not be discouraged by failure. Do not give up on the pursuit of virtue." For Marcus, persistence wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, day after day, and striving to do better. He understood that setbacks are inevitable, but they're also opportunities to learn and grow. Think about a time when you felt like giving up. Maybe you faced a difficult challenge at work, struggled with a personal habit, or encountered rejection in pursuit of a goal. Marcus's wisdom reminds us that progress isn't linear. What matters is not that you fell, but that you got back up. How might you apply this mindset to a challenge you're currently facing? Marcus also speaks to the importance of aligning your work with your values. He believed that work is most fulfilling when it is guided by a sense of purpose and integrity. "Do what is necessary," he writes, "and what is right. The rest will follow." This is a reminder to focus on what truly matters, rather than getting caught up in distractions or the opinions of others. Think about your own work, whether it's your career, your relationships, or your personal projects. Are your actions aligned with your values? Are you spending your time on what matters most? Or are you caught up in busy work that doesn't bring you closer to your goals? Marcus challenges us to take an honest look at how we're spending our energy and to make sure it reflects our highest priorities. One of the most practical lessons from this section is Marcus's advice to start small. He writes, "Do not despise small beginnings. All great things are made of smaller parts." This is a reminder that big achievements are rarely the result of one grand gesture. They're built through small, consistent actions over time. Take, for example, the process of building a habit. Whether it's exercising regularly, saving money, or improving a skill, the key is to start with small, manageable steps. Marcus's wisdom encourages us to focus not on the end result, but on the process. What small action can you take today to move closer to your goal? At the heart of this section is a deep sense of duty. Marcus believed that work, when approached with the right mindset, is not just an obligation, but a privilege. It's a chance to contribute to the world, to grow as a person, and to live in alignment with nature. This perspective transforms work from a chore into a meaningful part of life. As you reflect on Marcus's wisdom, consider how you might bring more purpose and integrity to your own work. How can you approach each task, no matter how small, with excellence? How can you align your actions with your values and focus on what truly matters? And most importantly, how can you see your work not as a burden, but as an opportunity to fulfill your role in the greater whole? The Book 6, Relationships and the Human Connection. In Book 6 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reflects deeply on human relationships and our place within the larger fabric of society. As an emperor, Marcus dealt with countless people daily: advisors, soldiers, citizens, and rivals. His writings reveal a profound understanding of the complexities of human behavior and a commitment to approaching others with empathy and patience. Marcus begins by reminding himself that humans are social creatures by nature. "We were born to work together like feet, hands and eyes," he writes. For Marcus, this wasn't just a philosophical observation, it was a call to action. He believed that harmony and cooperation were essential for a functioning society. But this doesn't mean blindly agreeing with everyone or avoiding conflict. Instead, it's about recognizing that we're all interconnected and our actions impact the whole. Imagine the last time you felt frustrated with someone, a colleague, a friend, or even a stranger. Marcus challenges us to approach these moments with a sense of shared humanity. Instead of reacting with anger or judgment, can you pause and ask yourself, what might they be going through? How can I respond in a way that contributes to harmony rather than discord? One of Marcus's most famous reflections on relationships is his reminder to expect imperfection. He writes, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, 'Today I will meet people who are selfish, deceitful, arrogant, jealous, and ungrateful, but I will not be harmed by them, for we share the same human nature.'" This exercise isn't about cynicism, it's about preparation. By accepting that imperfection is part of the human condition, Marcus freed himself from unnecessary frustration and disappointment. Think about how often we're caught off guard by someone's behavior. Maybe it's a rude comment, a broken promise, or a failure to meet expectations. Instead of letting these moments ruin your day, what if you approach them with Marcus's mindset? When you accept that imperfection is inevitable, it becomes easier to respond with patience and understanding. Another key lesson from this section is Marcus's emphasis on looking inward rather than outward. He writes, "Do not be distracted by the actions of others. Instead, focus on your own integrity and virtue." This is a powerful reminder that we can't control how others behave, but we can always control how we respond. Consider a time when someone's actions upset you. Did you react impulsively, or did you take a moment to reflect on your values? Marcus believed that when we allow others' behavior to dictate our emotions, we give away our power. Instead, he encourages us to stay anchored in our principles, responding with reason and kindness no matter what. Marcus also reflects on the importance of forgiveness. He understood that holding on to resentment only harms the one who carries it. "If someone wrongs you," he writes, "consider whether you have done the same to another. If so, forgive them as you would hope to be forgiven." This practice of self-reflection and empathy is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. It's not about excusing bad behavior, but about freeing yourself from the burden of anger and bitterness. Think about a situation where someone hurt or disappointed you. What would it look like to let go of that resentment? Marcus's wisdom reminds us that forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about finding peace within ourselves. In this section, Marcus also grapples with the tension between individuality and the collective good. He believed that while each person has their own unique path, we are all part of a larger whole. What is good for the hive, he writes, is good for the bee. This idea challenges us to think beyond our own needs and desires. How do our actions contribute to or detract from the well-being of those around us? Are we working in harmony with others, or are we acting out of selfishness? This perspective is particularly relevant in today's world, where individualism is often celebrated at the expense of community. Marcus reminds us that true fulfillment comes not from isolating ourselves, but from contributing to the greater good. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are there ways you can better support your family, friends, or community? How might those small acts of connection and service enrich your own sense of purpose? Marcus also warns against the trap of seeking validation from others. Do not waste time worrying about what others think of you, he writes. This is a lesson we all struggle with at times. It's natural to want approval, but Marcus believed that true freedom comes from living in alignment with your own values, not someone else's expectations. Think about a decision you've made recently. Was it influenced by a desire to please others, or was it guided by your own sense of what is right? Marcus's advice challenges us to prioritize authenticity over approval. When we stop chasing validation, we free ourselves to live more honestly and authentically. Finally, Marcus reflects on the inevitability of conflict. He knew that disagreements and misunderstandings are part of life, but he also believed that they don't have to divide us. If you are wronged, he writes, respond with reason and kindness. Show others the way by your example. This is a powerful reminder that our actions can inspire change, even in the face of negativity. Imagine a conflict you're currently dealing with. How might your response change if you approached it with Marcus's mindset? Instead of escalating the situation, could you lead with understanding and empathy? Marcus believed that by embodying the virtues we wish to see in others, we create a ripple effect that can transform relationships and communities. As we reflect on Marcus's wisdom in this section, one theme stands out: the importance of connection. Whether it's through forgiveness, empathy, or collaboration, Marcus teaches us that our relationships shape not only our lives, but also the world around us. His reflections challenge us to approach every interaction with patience, integrity, and a commitment to the greater good. Take a moment to think about your own relationships. Are there areas where you can bring more understanding, more kindness, or more authenticity? Marcus's teachings remind us that the quality of our connections determines the quality of our lives, and the best way to strengthen those connections is to start with ourselves. Book 7. Time, Perspective, and the Present Moment. As we enter Book 7 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reflects deeply on the nature of time and our place within it. He reminds us that life is fleeting and that the present moment is the only reality we truly possess. This section is both humbling and empowering, urging us to live with a sense of purpose while embracing the impermanence of all things. Marcus begins with a sobering observation: your life is short. You must turn to the present and make it your focus. These words challenge us to confront the reality of our limited time on earth. It's not a call to despair, but a reminder to prioritize what truly matters. How much of our energy is spent worrying about the future or dwelling on the past? Marcus urges us to shift our attention to the here and now, the only moment where we have the power to act. Think about a time when you felt fully present, Perhaps during a meaningful conversation, a creative project, or a moment of stillness in nature. What made that experience so powerful? Marcus's wisdom invites us to cultivate more of those moments, to approach each day with mindfulness and intention. Instead of letting time slip away unnoticed, how can you make the most of it? Marcus frequently returns to the idea of the vastness of the universe and the infinity of time. He writes, "Consider how small a part you are in comparison to the whole, and how brief your existence is compared to eternity. This isn't meant to diminish your significance, but to provide perspective." By zooming out, Marcus helps us see our problems in their proper context. Imagine the last time you were overwhelmed by a challenge. In the moment, it might have felt all-consuming, but when you step back and view it as a single point in a much larger timeline, its weight often diminishes. Marcus's reflections encourage us to adopt this broader perspective, to remember that life's difficulties are temporary and that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. One of the most practical lessons in this section is Marcus's reminder to focus on what you can control. You have power over your mind, he writes, not external events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This principle is at the heart of Stoic philosophy. While we can't dictate what happens around us, we can always choose our response. Think about a recent situation where you felt powerless. Maybe it was a delay, a disagreement, or an unexpected setback. Marcus's advice is to redirect your energy inward, to focus on your thoughts and actions rather than external circumstances. This doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means approaching them with clarity and calm, grounded in the knowledge that your true power lies within. Another profound reflection in this section is Marcus's observation that time is like a river. He describes life as a constant flow, with moments passing by like water. Just as you can't step into the same river twice, you can't hold on to the past or grasp the future. This metaphor invites us to let go of what we cannot change and embrace the present with gratitude. Think about how often we resist the flow of time. We dwell on past mistakes, replaying them in our minds, or we anxiously plan for a future that may never unfold as we expect. Marcus's wisdom challenges us to release these distractions and focus on the now. What would it look like to fully immerse yourself in the present moment, to approach life with a sense of flow rather than resistance? Marcus also reflects on the importance of aligning our actions with nature. He believed that just as every part of the universe has its role, so do we. Do what is in accordance with your nature, he writes. Let your actions flow naturally, like a tree bearing fruit or a river finding its course. This perspective is both freeing and grounding. It reminds us that we don't need to force our way through life. Instead, we can trust in our innate abilities and follow the path that feels most authentic. Take a moment to consider: are your actions aligned with your values and purpose? Are you living in harmony with your true self, or are you trying to fit into a mold that doesn't reflect who you are? A recurring theme in this section is the idea of death, not as something to fear but as a natural part of life. Marcus writes, "Do not fear death. It is a part of the cycle, just as the falling of leaves is part of the seasons." For Marcus, contemplating mortality wasn't morbid. It was a way to live more fully. By accepting that life is finite, we can focus on what truly matters and let go of trivial concerns. Think about how often we avoid thinking about death, even though it's one of life's certainties. What would it mean to embrace it instead, to use it as motivation to live with intention and gratitude? Marcus's reflections remind us that death isn't the end. It's a transition, a natural step in the journey of existence. Marcus also offers practical advice for dealing with distractions and staying focused on what matters. He writes, "Do not be swept away by trivial things. Keep your mind fixed on what is important." In a world full of endless notifications, competing priorities, and constant noise, this advice feels more relevant than ever. How often do we allow ourselves to be pulled in 1,000 directions, losing sight of our goals and values? Marcus challenges us to simplify, to focus our energy on what truly aligns with our purpose. Imagine how much more peaceful and productive your life could be if you let go of distractions and centered yourself on what matters most. At the heart of this section is a profound sense of gratitude. Marcus reminds us that every moment is a gift, an opportunity to live in accordance with our values and contribute to the greater whole. He writes, "Do not squander the time you have been given. Use it wisely, for it is the most precious resource you possess." As we reflect on Marcus's wisdom, take a moment to consider, how are you using your time? Are you fully present in the moments that matter, or are you letting them slip away unnoticed? Marcus's reflections challenge us to live with greater awareness, purpose, and appreciation for the fleeting beauty of life. Book 8. Inner Strength and Mastery Over Emotions. In Book 8 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius delves into the concept of inner strength, emphasizing the importance of mastering one's emotions and maintaining control over the mind. This section reflects Marcus's commitment to the Stoic ideal that true power lies not in external circumstances, but in the clarity and stability of one's own thoughts. Marcus begins with a striking observation. The mind is its own master. If it does not control itself, it will be controlled by others. This is a call to take responsibility for our inner world. Marcus recognized that life is full of events we cannot control, loss, failure, conflict, but he also believed that our reactions to these events are entirely within our power. Think about the last time you felt overwhelmed by anger, fear, or frustration. What would it have been like to pause, reflect, and choose your response instead of reacting impulsively? Marcus reminds us that we are not slaves to our emotions. We can rise above them. One of the key lessons from this section is the idea that external events are neutral. Marcus writes, "It is not events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we form about them." This is a powerful shift in perspective. It means that nothing has the power to upset us unless we allow it to. For Marcus, this was more than a philosophical concept. It was a practical tool for maintaining peace of mind. Imagine facing a difficult situation like a harsh critique at work or an unexpected financial setback. Instead of immediately labeling it as bad or unfair, Marcus encourages us to ask, what can I learn from this? How can I use this experience to grow? By changing the way we interpret events, we can transform even the most challenging moments into opportunities for self-improvement. Marcus also reflects on the importance of maintaining inner tranquility. "Keep your inner citadel intact," he writes, "for it is the one thing that no external force can breach." This metaphor of the mind as a citadel, a fortress that protects us from the chaos of the outside world, is central to Marcus's philosophy. He believed that by cultivating inner calm, we could face any external storm with strength and resilience. Think about how often we let external events invade our inner peace. A negative comment, a traffic jam, or an unexpected setback can easily throw us off balance. But what if you viewed your mind as a sacred space, one that only you have the power to control? How might that change the way you approach daily challenges? Marcus's wisdom challenges us to protect our mental and emotional well-being as diligently as we protect our physical health. In this section, Marcus also confronts the destructive power of anger. He writes, "Anger is weakness. It clouds the mind and impairs judgment." For Marcus, anger wasn't a sign of strength. It was a failure to maintain control. He believed that true power lies in staying calm and composed, even in the face of provocation. Imagine a time when anger got the better of you. Maybe you said something you regretted or made a rash decision. What would it have been like to pause, breathe, and approach the situation with reason instead of emotion? Marcus's reflections remind us that while anger may feel justified in the moment, it rarely serves us in the long run. By mastering our anger, we free ourselves to respond to challenges with clarity and wisdom. Another profound insight from this section is Marcus's reminder to let go of what we cannot control. He writes, "You are disturbed not by what happens, but by your desire for it to be otherwise." This is a humbling realization. How much of our stress comes from resisting reality, from wishing things were different than they are? Marcus encourages us to accept life as it is, not as we wish it to be. Think about a situation in your life where you've struggled to let go, perhaps a missed opportunity, a failed relationship, or an unfulfilled expectation. What would it feel like to release that attachment and simply accept what is? Marcus's wisdom isn't about giving up. It's about finding peace in the midst of life's inevitable uncertainties. One of the most practical lessons in this section is the idea of returning to reason when emotions threaten to overwhelm us. Marcus writes, "When you feel yourself slipping, return to reason. Ask, what is in my control? What is the right thing to do?" This simple exercise can be a powerful way to regain clarity and focus. Imagine a moment of emotional turmoil, a disagreement with a loved one, a stressful deadline, or a personal failure. Instead of letting the emotions spiral out of control, pause and ask yourself, what is within my power right now? How can I respond in a way that aligns with my values? By grounding ourselves in reason, we can navigate even the most challenging situations with grace and purpose. At the heart of this section is a deep sense of empowerment. Marcus believed that no matter what happens in the external world, we always have the ability to choose our response. "You have power over your mind," he writes, "not over external events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This is a lesson that resonates deeply in today's fast-paced, often overwhelming world. It's easy to feel powerless in the face of uncertainty, conflict, or change. But Marcus reminds us that true strength doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from controlling ourselves. By mastering our thoughts and emotions, we can create a sense of peace and stability that no external force can take away. As you reflect on Marcus's teachings in this section, consider how you can apply them in your own life. Are there areas where you've allowed external events to dictate your emotions? Are there moments when anger or frustration has clouded your judgment? How might your life change if you focused on cultivating inner calm and returning to reason in the face of challenges? Marcus's wisdom isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about understanding them, mastering them, and using them as tools for growth. By following his example, we can build our own inner citadel, a place of strength and peace that allows us to face the world with confidence and clarity. Book 9, Accepting Mortality and Living Fully. In Book 9 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius confronts one of the most profound aspects of human existence, the inevitability of death. For Marcus, death was not something to fear or avoid thinking about. It was a natural part of life, an ever-present reminder to live with purpose and gratitude. His reflections on mortality are both humbling and empowering, offering us a roadmap for embracing the finite nature of our existence. Marcus begins with a simple but striking observation. Every one of us is going to die. This is not tragic, it is part of nature. These words may seem harsh at first, but for Marcus, they were liberating. By accepting death as an unavoidable reality, he freed himself from the fear and anxiety that often accompany thoughts of mortality. Instead of dreading the end, Marcus focused on making the most of the time he had. Imagine how your perspective might shift if you embraced this mindset. How would you live differently if you truly accepted that every moment is precious? One of Marcus's most practical pieces of advice in this section is to live each day as if it were your last. He writes, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This isn't about being morbid or reckless, it's about being fully present and intentional. When we recognize that our time is limited, we're more likely to focus on what truly matters, whether it's spending quality time with loved ones, pursuing meaningful work, or simply appreciating the beauty of the present moment. Think about how often we procrastinate, putting off important conversations, delaying our dreams, or waiting for the right time to start living fully. Marcus's reflections challenge us to stop waiting and start acting. What is one thing you've been postponing that you could begin today? How might your life change if you approached each moment with a sense of urgency and purpose? Marcus also reflects on the universality of death. He writes, "Kings and peasants alike share the same fate. Death comes to all, regardless of wealth, power, or status." This perspective can be both humbling and comforting. It reminds us that no matter how different our lives may seem on the surface, we are all part of the same human experience. Death is the great equalizer, a shared destiny that unites us all. This realization can help us let go of the trivial concerns that often dominate our thoughts. When you're caught up in a disagreement, a moment of jealousy, or a fear of failure, ask yourself, will this matter in the grand scheme of things? Marcus's wisdom encourages us to focus on what's truly important, living with integrity, kindness, and purpose. One of the most profound insights in this section is Marcus's reminder that death is not the opposite of life, but a natural part of it. He writes, "Just as leaves fall from the tree and nourish the earth, so too do we return to the universe from which we came." For Marcus, death was not an end, but a transformation, a return to the larger whole of existence. Think about how this perspective might change your view of loss. Whether it's the death of a loved one, the end of a relationship, or the conclusion of a chapter in your life, Marcus invites us to see endings not as failures, but as transitions. How might you find peace in accepting the impermanence of all things? Another recurring theme in this section is the importance of focusing on the present. Marcus writes, "Do not waste your time imagining the future or regretting the past. The present moment is all you ever truly have." This is a reminder that while we cannot change the past or predict the future, we have complete control over how we live right now. Consider how much of your mental energy is spent outside the present moment. Do you replay past mistakes or worry about what's to come? Marcus's reflections challenge us to bring our focus back to the here and now. What can you do in this moment to live more fully, more authentically, and more in alignment with your values? Marcus also offers a practical exercise for embracing mortality. When you kiss your child, remind yourself they are mortal. When you hold a loved one, remember they are not yours to keep. This isn't about detachment, it's about deepening your appreciation for the people and experiences in your life. By acknowledging their impermanence, you can cherish them more fully. Think about the relationships and moments you often take for granted. What would it look like to approach them with a renewed sense of gratitude and presence? Marcus's wisdom reminds us that love and connection are made more meaningful by their fleeting nature. Think about the relationships and moments you often take for granted. What would it look like to approach them with a renewed sense of gratitude and presence? Marcus's wisdom reminds us that love and connection are made more meaningful by their fleeting nature. At the heart of this section is Marcus's belief that death is not something to fear, but something to prepare for. He writes, "Live in such a way that when your time comes, you are ready to go without regret." This is a powerful challenge. It invites us to examine our lives and ask, are we living in alignment with our values? Are we making the most of our time? Are we leaving behind a legacy of kindness, integrity, and purpose? Imagine how your life might change if you adopted this mindset. What would you prioritize? What would you let go of? Marcus's reflections on mortality are not about despair, they are about awakening. By embracing the reality of death, we can live more fully, more joyfully, and more meaningfully. As you reflect on Marcus's teachings in this section, take a moment to consider how they resonate with your own life. What fears or anxieties about mortality might you release? What steps can you take to live with greater intention and presence? Marcus's wisdom challenges us to see every moment as a gift, an opportunity to grow, to love, and to contribute to the greater whole. Book 10. Cultivating Inner Peace and Tranquility. In Book 10 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius focuses on the pursuit of inner peace, a tranquility that comes not from external circumstances, but from within. For Marcus, achieving this state required mastering the art of detachment, aligning with nature and focusing on the things we can control while letting go of the things we cannot. This section serves as a guide to navigating life's chaos with grace and balance. Marcus begins with a reflection on the power of the mind to shape our reality. "The mind is like a mirror," he writes. "It reflects what you choose to focus on." For Marcus, this meant that external events, good or bad, are not what disturb us. It's our perception of them that creates peace or turmoil. Imagine facing a stressful situation, such as a conflict at work or a personal setback. What if, instead of reacting emotionally, you paused and reframed the situation? Could you choose to see it as an opportunity to grow rather than a crisis? Marcus believed that by mastering our perceptions, we can remain calm no matter what life throws our way. One of Marcus's most practical pieces of advice in this section is to create a mental boundary between yourself and external events. Your soul, he writes, should remain untouched by the noise of the world. This doesn't mean ignoring life's challenges. It means protecting your inner peace from unnecessary disturbances. Think of it like closing a door to keep out the noise. Just as you wouldn't let someone walk into your home uninvited, Marcus challenges us to guard our minds against uninvited distractions and negativity. Consider how often we let the opinions of others or the events of the day invade our mental space. A rude comment, a piece of bad news, or an unplanned setback can easily disrupt our peace if we allow it. Marcus's wisdom reminds us that we have the power to choose what we let in. The next time you feel your inner peace slipping away, try this. Take a deep breath, pause, and ask yourself, is this worth my attention? Does it align with my values? By practicing this mental boundary, you can cultivate a sense of calm that remains steady even in turbulent times. Marcus also reflects on the impermanence of all things, including our own thoughts and emotions. Just as clouds pass through the sky, he writes, so too do your thoughts pass through your mind. Let them come and go without clinging to them. This is a profound reminder that we don't have to identify with every thought or feeling we experience. Just because a thought enters your mind doesn't mean it defines you. Imagine dealing with feelings of doubt, anger, or fear. Instead of getting caught up in them, Marcus encourages us to observe them with detachment. This is just a thought, you might say to yourself. It will pass. This simple practice can create a sense of spaciousness, allowing you to respond to life's challenges with clarity rather than reactivity. Another key theme in this section is the importance of aligning with nature. Marcus believed that peace comes from living in harmony with the natural order of things. Accept what comes your way, he writes, for it is part of the whole. This doesn't mean passively accepting injustice or wrongdoing. It means recognizing that life unfolds according to its own rhythms, and resisting those rhythms only creates suffering. Think about a recent disappointment or unexpected change in your life. Perhaps a project didn't go as planned, or a relationship took an unexpected turn. How much of your distress came from wishing things were different? Marcus's wisdom invites us to release that resistance and trust the flow of life. What would it feel like to let go of the need to control every outcome and instead focus on doing your best with what is in front of you? Marcus also touches on the value of simplifying our lives. If you seek peace, he writes, do less. This isn't an argument for laziness. It's a call to focus on what truly matters. By eliminating unnecessary distractions and commitments, we create space for what is meaningful. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are there areas where you're overcommitted or spread too thin? What would it look like to say no to the things that drain your energy and yes to the things that align with your values? Marcus's advice to simplify is a reminder that peace isn't about doing more. It's about doing less, but doing it with intention and care. One of the most profound lessons from this section is Marcus's belief that we are responsible for our own peace. Happiness, he writes, is a state of mind. It does not depend on external things. This is a radical idea, especially in a world that often equates happiness with achievement, possessions, or recognition. For Marcus, true peace came from within, from living in alignment with his principles, embracing the present moment, and letting go of what he couldn't control. Think about how often we look for peace outside of ourselves. We tell ourselves, I'll be happy when I get that promotion, buy that house, or finish that project. But even when we achieve those things, the satisfaction is often fleeting. Marcus challenges us to look inward instead. What would it mean to cultivate peace that isn't dependent on circumstances, but on the way you choose to live your life? At the heart of this section is a deep sense of gratitude. Marcus reminds us that life itself is a gift, and every moment is an opportunity to practice virtue, cultivate wisdom, and contribute to the greater good. Do not squander the time you have been given, he writes. Use it wisely, for it is the most precious resource you possess. As you reflect on Marcus's teachings in this section, consider how they apply to your own life. Are there areas where you've allowed external events to disturb your peace? Are there ways you can simplify, refocus, or align more closely with your values? Marcus's wisdom isn't about escaping the chaos of the world. It's about finding stillness and clarity within it. Book 11, Ethics and the Path to Virtue. In Book 11 of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius reflects on the role of ethics in a meaningful life. For Marcus, living virtuously wasn't just a moral ideal, it was the essence of what it means to be human. This section delves into the choices we make every day, the values we uphold, and the impact of our actions on both ourselves and the world around us. Marcus begins by emphasizing the importance of aligning our actions with our principles. "Do nothing without purpose," he writes. This is a challenge to approach life with intention, ensuring that every choice we make reflects our highest values. Think about how often we act out of habit or impulse, without pausing to consider whether our actions align with who we want to be. Marcus invites us to slow down, to reflect, and to ensure that every decision, no matter how small, serves a greater purpose. Consider your daily routines and interactions. Are there moments where you're going through the motions without much thought? What would it look like to approach those moments with greater awareness and intentionality? Marcus's wisdom reminds us that even the smallest actions, how we greet a colleague, how we respond to a challenge, how we spend our free time, are opportunities to live out our values. One of the central themes in this section is the idea that virtue is its own reward. Marcus writes, "Do good for its own sake, not for recognition or praise." This is a powerful reminder in a world that often values external achievements over inner character. Marcus believed that true fulfillment comes not from seeking approval, but from acting with integrity. Think about a time when you did something kind or generous, not because anyone was watching, but because it felt right. How did that feel compared to moments when you sought recognition or reward? Marcus challenges us to shift our focus inward, to find satisfaction in living virtuously rather than in chasing external validation. Marcus also reflects on the interconnectedness of humanity. "We are all part of the same body," he writes. "What benefits one benefits all." This perspective isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical. Marcus believed that our actions, no matter how small, ripple out to affect others. When we act with kindness, honesty, or courage, we contribute to the greater good. When we act selfishly or deceitfully, we harm not only others, but ourselves. Consider how this perspective might change the way you approach your relationships and responsibilities. How often do you think about the broader impact of your actions? Marcus's wisdom encourages us to see ourselves as part of a larger whole, to act not just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of those around us. In this section, Marcus also warns against the dangers of comparison. "Do not waste time envying others," he writes. "Their path is not yours." This is a profound reminder that each of us has our own unique journey, shaped by our circumstances, choices, and values. Comparing ourselves to others only distracts us from what truly matters, living our own lives with purpose and authenticity. Think about a time when you felt envious of someone else's success, possessions, or abilities. How did that affect your mindset and actions? What might it feel like to let go of that comparison and focus instead on your own path? Marcus's advice challenges us to turn inward, to measure ourselves not against others, but against our own potential. One of the most practical lessons from this section is Marcus's emphasis on self-discipline. "Master yourself," he writes, "and you will master life." For Marcus, self-discipline wasn't about denying pleasure or suppressing emotions. It was about aligning your actions with your values, even when it's difficult. It's about doing what's right, not what's easy. Consider a goal or habit you've been struggling with. Maybe it's exercising regularly, being more patient, or staying focused at work. What would it look like to approach that challenge with Marcus's mindset? How might your life change if you committed to mastering yourself, one small step at a time? Marcus also reflects on the importance of humility. Despite being an emperor, he continually reminded himself that he was no better than anyone else. "Do not think yourself above others," he writes. "We are all subject to the same laws of nature." This humility allowed Marcus to approach others with empathy and understanding, recognizing that their struggles and flaws were reflections of his own. Think about a time when you judged someone harshly. How might your perspective have changed if you had approached them with humility, seeing their actions as a reflection of shared human imperfection? Marcus's wisdom challenges us to replace judgment with compassion, to see ourselves in others and act with kindness accordingly. At the heart of this section is Marcus's belief that life is defined by the choices we make. Each day, he writes, is an opportunity to act in accordance with your principles. This is a call to action, a reminder that virtue isn't a destination, but a practice, a series of small, deliberate choices made moment by moment. As you reflect on Marcus's teachings in this section, consider how they apply to your own life. Are your actions aligned with your values? Are you acting with intention, kindness and courage, or are you being pulled off course by distractions and impulses? Marcus's wisdom challenges us to take ownership of our choices, to live with integrity, and to strive for excellence in all that we do. Book 12. Letting Go and Living with Purpose. In the final book of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius offers a profound reflection on the impermanence of life and the importance of living with intention and virtue. This section serves as a culmination of his wisdom, distilling the principles that guided him through the complexities of leadership, relationships, and self-discipline. Marcus begins with a reminder that everything in life is temporary. All things fade into the past, he writes, and are replaced by what is to come. For Marcus, this wasn't a lament. It was a call to focus on what truly matters. Life's fleeting nature isn't something to fear. It's a reason to live fully. Consider how often we let trivial concerns or distractions consume our time and energy. Marcus's words challenge us to step back and ask, what will truly matter in the end? How can I ensure that the time I have is spent wisely? One of the most poignant lessons in this section is Marcus's advice to release our attachment to outcomes. You control your actions, but not the results, he writes. This is a cornerstone of Stoic philosophy, the idea that we should focus on doing our best without becoming fixated on the results. Whether it's in our work, relationships, or personal goals, Marcus reminds us that the outcome is often beyond our control. What matters is the effort and integrity we bring to the process. Think about a time when you became overly focused on achieving a specific outcome. Perhaps it was a career milestone, a personal project, or a conflict you wanted to resolve. How did that fixation affect your mindset and actions? What would it look like to shift your focus to the effort itself, trusting that the results will unfold as they're meant to? Marcus's wisdom encourages us to let go of the need to control everything and to find peace in simply doing our best. Marcus also reflects on the importance of humility in the face of life's impermanence. You are but a small part of the whole, he writes, a single thread in the vast tapestry of existence. This perspective is both humbling and liberating. It reminds us that while our actions matter, we are not the center of the universe. By embracing this humility, we can approach life with greater perspective, letting go of ego and focusing on what truly contributes to the greater good. Imagine how this mindset might change the way you approach challenges or conflicts. Instead of taking everything personally or viewing setbacks as catastrophic, what if you saw them as part of a larger story, one in which your role is important but not all-encompassing? Marcus's reflections challenge us to zoom out, to see ourselves not as isolated individuals, but as interconnected parts of a greater whole. Another recurring theme in this section is Marcus's belief in the power of gratitude. He writes, "Take a moment to be thankful for all that is, your life, your breath, your ability to think and act." This practice of gratitude was central to Marcus's philosophy. By focusing on what we have rather than what we lack, we cultivate a sense of abundance and contentment. Think about something you've taken for granted recently. Maybe it's your health, a supportive friend, or even the simple pleasures of daily life. A warm meal, a good book, or a moment of quiet. Marcus's advice is to pause and appreciate these gifts, to recognize that they are not guaranteed and that their impermanence makes them all the more precious. Marcus also confronts the inevitability of death with a sense of calm and acceptance. "Death is not to be feared," he writes. "It is merely a return to the source from which we came." For Marcus, death was not an end, but a transition, a natural part of the cycle of existence. This perspective allowed him to approach life with clarity and courage, unburdened by the fear of the unknown. Imagine how your life might change if you embraced this mindset. Instead of avoiding thoughts of mortality, what if you used them as motivation to live with greater intention and purpose? What relationships would you nurture? What projects would you start or finish? Marcus's reflections remind us that by accepting the reality of death, we can focus on living more fully. At the heart of this section is Marcus's belief that life is defined by the choices we make. Every moment, he writes, is an opportunity to align yourself with virtue. This is a call to action, a reminder that we have the power to shape our lives through the decisions we make each day. Whether it's choosing kindness over anger, patience over frustration, or courage over fear, Marcus believed that every choice, no matter how small, contributes to the person we become. As you reflect on Marcus's teachings in this final book, consider how they apply to your own life. Are there areas where you've been holding on to outcomes or resisting change? Are there moments where fear or ego has held you back from living authentically? What would it look like to approach each day as an opportunity to live with greater clarity, gratitude, and purpose? Marcus Aurelius ends Meditations not with a grand conclusion, but with a sense of quiet resolve. His reflections remind us that while life is complex and unpredictable, we always have the power to live with integrity, to act with kindness, and to find peace within ourselves. His wisdom isn't just for emperors or philosophers, it's for anyone seeking to navigate life with grace and meaning. As we conclude this exploration of Meditations, take a moment to consider what resonated most with you. What lessons can you carry forward into your own life? And how might you use Marcus's teachings to approach each day with greater intention, courage, and compassion? As we wrap up this journey through Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, let's pause to reflect on the profound wisdom we've explored. Marcus's words are more than philosophy. They are a timeless guide for navigating the complexities of life with grace, courage, and clarity. His reflections remind us that while we may not control the external events that shape our lives, we always have power over our minds, our choices, and the way we respond. Marcus taught us the importance of living with intention, of approaching each day with purpose, and aligning our actions with our values. He showed us how to embrace the present moment, letting go of distractions from the past and anxieties about the future. And perhaps most powerfully, he reminded us to find strength in our inner world, to cultivate tranquility and resilience no matter what storms rage around us. As you reflect on this episode, consider how Marcus's teachings can shape your own life. What small changes can you make today to live with more intention, gratitude, and purpose? Is there a challenge you're facing where his wisdom might guide you to respond with calm and clarity? Remember, life is fleeting, a series of moments, each offering us a choice. Will we act with virtue, or will we let circumstances dictate our actions? Marcus's reflections challenge us to rise above, to live not just for ourselves, but for the greater good, and to leave behind a legacy of integrity and kindness. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of meditations. If you found this episode meaningful, I encourage you to share it with someone who might benefit from Marcus's wisdom. And, as always, I'd love to hear your thoughts. What resonated with you most? What lessons will you carry forward? Reach out and share your journey. I'm always here to continue the conversation. Until next time, keep striving for the best version of yourself, find peace in the present, and embrace the beauty of life's impermanence. As Marcus would remind us, what matters most is not how long we live, but how well we live. See you in the next episode. Stay strong, stay wise, and take care.